So I went and saw How to Train Your Dragon, the 2025 live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. And, after years and years and years and years and years of being totally burned and burnt out on the Disney live-action movies, I went in with measured expectations. It looked good. The reviews had been, before it came out, were pretty positive. Not universally positive, but pretty positive. But there was still a part of me that thought, is this just another blatant cash grab? Like, are they going to change some big fundamental things about this? And yeah, there were questions, like, are they inserting a bunch of token diversity that's going to be meaningless and just kind of trying to check boxes to earn brownie points or whatever with that crowd? And I'm pleased to say that actually this was a pretty brilliant adaptation, a very faithful adaptation to the original animated movie, and just a lot of fun. There's an argument to be made that, like, what is the point of this adaptation? Like, why are we remaking a classic animated film into live action in the first place? What is the purpose that this serves? Especially when it isn't fundamentally a different movie. It is like a one-to-one, or as close to one-to-one as you can expect, adaptation of the source material. So what's the point? It's kind of similar to, like, what's the point of making a Last of Us adaptation, like in season 1, where so much of it was shot for shot, the same as the video game? I guess that's a bigger, more drastic change because you're going from games, which not everybody plays games, to movies, or to TV, I guess, which, maybe is a totally different audience. And I guess the same could be said for animated to live action. Like, not everybody wants to go see a cartoon. They want to see live actors. And I think there were a few things about having live actors instead of animated characters that lends itself to kind of like a little bit more emotional connection. I'm a huge fan of animated stuff. I love cartoons. So I found the original movie, first and second movie for movies of How to Train Your Dragon, was very emotionally powerful and funny and perfect. Like, honestly, perfect. But I cannot think of a better adaptation of an animated movie into a live action movie that has ever been made. Disney has been absolutely put to shame by this first effort from DreamWorks, which, good for them. They saw their audience and they said, hey, we're making this movie for you, not for some other mysterious audience, this modern audience, or whatever you want to call it. We're making this for you. We're making this for fans of the original characters and the original story. We're not going to change huge, drastic things about it. We're not going to make Hiccup a different character. We're not going to make, all these, we're going to leave Stoic and all these other characters alone. Now, the one thing that they did, I would say, the one thing that they really changed, which is very, very minor, is a few of the characters. They added a little bit more diversity. So you have some black and brown and whatnot characters, right? There's diversity there, and one of the main one was Astrid, who was played by Nico Parker, who is Thandui Newton's daughter. She looks like a tiny little Thandui Newton, who you may recognize from Westworld and other stuff. And I actually think this movie did such a good job with sprinkling in some diversity, because mostly the characters are spitting images of the characters from the cartoon. They did a great job casting. But then it's a little more diverse, right? Because the Isle of Berk is this Viking island, and it's populated by Vikings who are, white. But there's one scene that they added to the movie where Stoic the Vast, the chieftain played by Gerard Butler, is giving a speech about hunting down the dragons, and he mentions in this speech that warriors from all over the world have sailed to Berk to join this dragon hunt. And then he points out a few different of these minor characters and talks about how they're from, like, the Silk Road, and you're from here and there. It just adds a little bit of backstory and explanation to why there's more diversity on the island. It doesn't just, like, make all the Vikings different colors. It adds characters from other locations. I think that's such a brilliant way to actually do this. I wish that this is one of my biggest complaints when it comes to fantasy or historical fiction, when it's just diversified with no explanation. Like Rings of Power, when there's just suddenly like all the hobbits are all different skin colors. It's like, where did they all come from? Like, this is not, 2025 in Brooklyn, right? It makes sense that in a modern story, You would have, set in America, you would have a very diverse or diverse cast because America is diverse. But it doesn't make sense when it's like, Vikings Valhalla, and suddenly there's a black woman as a Viking chief, and it's just that she's just there. There's no real reason for it. They've just replaced an actual historical figure who is a white man, a Viking chieftain with a black woman. That feels like, to me, the worst thing about this is, first, it's immersion breaking, and second, it's condescending to both viewers and to the people they're trying to sort of appease. Like you just make a white Viking historical figure black just to like appease black people. It's like a hand-me-down diversity. It's super lame, and kind of racist, honestly. But so they add this in here, and I think that's so brilliant to do that. And I wish more. I wish we had that level of care. It's like they actually thought about it, which I just feel like in this day and age, nobody's thinking about these things. Like the Winter King adaptation that came out, that's based on Bernard Cornwell's Arthurian saga, and it's a brilliant series of books. But they completely diversified this fifth century Britain to make it like just completely ahistorical. Like people are always like, well, there were black people in the UK, or it wasn't the UK then, in Britain or whatever. Yeah, there were. And in Cornwell's book, there was Sagramar, who was a Roman legionnaire, and he's black. He's from North Africa, and he's like the only black person that anyone else in the book has seen. So he inspires fear and wonder and awe and dread when anyone sees him, because they've never seen a black person before. It's a great character, right? Because he's unique. He brings this other world into fifth century Britain, and instead in the show they made Merlin, like Merlin in the books is like this old cranky, lecherous man who's just like kind of awful in a lot of ways, but they make him like a 35-year-old black dude in the show. It makes no sense. He's not even the same personality, let alone any, talking about skin color. But I digress. I just thought I was thinking about this when I watched the movie, when I watched How to Train Your Dragon, like what an easy, simple way to add a bit more diversity, but also add to the world building so that it makes sense. And fundamentally, it is a story about dragons, right? I really enjoyed this movie, though. It's extremely faithful to the original, which is just something you don't get to say very often these days. Oh my God, it's a faithful adaptation. What's happening? What year is this? It at times shot for shot, line for line, even the delivery of lines. Although I think Hiccup is actually kind of an improvement in the live action. He's a little bit more, I don't know. He's a little less cynical, a little less wry. He's a little more optimistic, maybe. But I'd have to rewatch. It's been a while since I've seen. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a while since I've seen the original, which is playing in the back of this video. But one thing I really enjoyed about it, though, about the live action was, well, the CGI is great. So they not only put Disney to shame with this dragon writing, but they put Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon to shame, because it's so seamless. Like, characters riding on the backs of dragons look totally natural. It's crazy how good the CGI is and how well they've blended the real footage with CGI. The dragon riding sequences themselves are astonishing. You have that great soundtrack playing, the How to Train Your Dragon score, and you have Hiccup and Astrid flying on the back of Toothless, or the other dragons that you end up seeing, but especially those scenes where Hiccup and Toothless are flying over the Isle of Berk and down through the waves and like bursting out of the water and going through the canyons, and it's just glorious. Like, it looks so good. I mean, it looked great in the animated movie, but there's something that they take it to another level here, and I could honestly go back and watch it again just to see it, see those scenes in particular. I kind of want to drive down to Phoenix and watch it on an IMAX, because I bet it's awesome on IMAX, and we don't have an IMAX here because I live in the boondocks. So ultimately, I would say, this is a great example of what Disney's been doing wrong. DreamWorks got it on their first try. Instead of trying to rewrite the whole story or change the characters or themes of the story, they just took what worked in the first place and then made a live action version of it. It's a shockingly simple concept. They didn't have to make, they didn't make Astrid the main character and make Hiccup a bumbling idiot. I mean, Astrid's pretty much the same character. Like, obviously there are some differences in all of these characters. They changed the twins a little bit. I can't think of their names, Rough Nut or what, I don't, but they made them not look identical, and it leads to actually a pretty funny joke. So I kind of like that they did that. But ultimately, there's just a bunch of stuff taken from the original, put into live action, and it's enjoyable to see it in this new form. That's the point of it. You get to experience it in a new way that is fundamentally just very familiar to the original movie. And I'm glad. Like, I am tired of adaptations changing so much. I get that sometimes it has to happen. If you're dealing with a huge fantasy epic series, you have to cut stuff. You do. But what we see happening is that not just cutting stuff, but like adding whole new storylines and changing the message and the themes of the original work in really broad strokes ways that just alter it into a point that it's no longer recognizable as what it was. But How to Train Your Dragon, I mean, go see this movie both because it's really, really well made, but also to reward a studio for actually doing the right thing and honoring the original source. And that's just so rare these days. I mean, you know, the first 5 or 6 seasons of Game of Thrones, the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy, you know, they made some big changes, but I feel like they were working within constraints where those changes were mostly justified. We don't see adaptations as faithful as those anymore. We just don't see them. I don't know what we're going to get with Netflix's Narnia books, their adaptation of those books. Greta Gerwig is working on one of those. I don't know if they will be at all faithful. My gut tells me they won't be. But I hope that studios start to realize that when these things are faithful to the original while making only the changes you have to make to adapt it to the new medium, that the response from viewers, from fans, is a positive one, and they make money, and then they can make more movies and fans get more, and we stop this trend of constantly making everything the showrunner, the producer, the writers of the adaptations making it their story instead of the story they're supposed to be making in the first place. So this was a breath of fresh air. I was thrilled and honestly just like so pleasantly surprised. And my kids, I went with my kids. They loved it. My daughter's 18 now, if you can believe that. She was just grinning ear to ear. I mean, this is a movie that she and my son grew up with, and they were both just so enthusiastic. My daughter's boyfriend was like, well, I don't see what the point of making this was. And I was like, yeah, I get that. Like, I also don't really, I mean, it's to make money, obviously, right? But he did enjoy it also. So I think even like he's like a little more cynical and whatnot than the others. But I think even the cynical going into this, the cynical people going into this thinking like, what is this? This is just kind of a cash grab. We'll still find something to enjoy. So, sorry I've been so AWOL. I went to Scotland and Ireland for like almost 3 weeks. I was exploring Scotland and the Scottish Highlands on my own and just kind of taking some time off from the world. And then I had a ton of stuff to do when I got back, and I've just been behind on everything. And my lower back has been out, which has just left me feeling extremely exhausted. And so I'm just, you know, these are my excuses. I have full-time teenagers that live with me. I do this alone and I run out of steam, but I am trying to also work on improving the production value of my videos. I've been investing in some new equipment and working on the software end. And so hopefully, you know, I will pick up the pace of making these videos now that I'm back, now that I'm settled in. And got to see the spine doctor on Thursday, so we'll see if maybe they can fix me. I just want to be a cyborg. Like I want to be Darth Vader. I want you to make me more machine than man. I want to be able to replace parts that break instead of just living and suffering with them. Okay, can we do that? Are we there yet technologically? Because that would be cool. That would be cooler than the technology we have. That and hoverboards. And mecha dragons or something. Anyways, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of How to Train Your Dragon down in the comments. And peace.